Seattle's dusk was that blue hour where the sky felt like wet ink, the water at Lake Union holding the city lights like a fistful of coins. Avery Bennett jogged along the path by the park's rusted towers, earbuds in, hoodie up, letting the wind thread through her bangs. She had graded paintings all afternoon, tiny galaxies of acrylic and glitter swirled by fifth graders, and her mind was pleasantly empty in the way you only get after pouring out care. She almost didn't notice the retriever until the leash snapped a few yards ahead. A golden blur shot across the path, tags clinking, people shouted. A rideshare sedan swung around the curve too fast, tires hissing. Avery didn't think she launched. One hand grabbed the dog's collar, the other planted hard on the asphalt as she twisted her body, sliding them both out of the lane. The car clipped her sneaker and kept going. The dog yelped once, then collapsed against her ribs, trembling like a drum. Hey, you're okay, Avery whispered, breath serrated, palm on warm fur. She found the tag, Atlas. You're okay, Atlas. Someone slowed. Holy, you saved that dog. Another voice. I got it on video. Then a shadow fell over her, a clean, expensive cologne cutting through rain and metal. The man crouched, snatching the dog's collar from her fingers with a practiced, proprietary gesture. He wore a charcoal coat that fit like a decision, eyes the color of the water when a storm moves in. Avery knew that face from headlines on airport news screens and billboards that sold the future. Graham Sterling, the tech billionaire, the one whose name felt like a logo. What were you thinking? He snapped. That was stupid. The word hit harder than the car. Stupid. People who wore suits like armor loved that word. It flattened everything human into a caution sign. Atlas whined and licked her wrist, shaking. Avery opened her mouth, then shut it. He wasn't even looking at the dog, not really, just scanning her, assessing the liability of a stranger's body near his property. I pulled him out of the lane, she said, voice steady. You're welcome. What if you'd been hurt? His jaw ticked. Do you expect me to deal with that fallout? This park is private after dusk. There are rules. Rules didn't stop your dog from running into traffic. A small crowd had gathered, the way clouds gather around a mountain peak. Phones were up like flowers turning toward sun. A woman in glossy boots with a shark smile stepped forward, touching the billionaire's sleeve as if she owned stock in him. Sloane Kingsley. Avery recognized her, too, PR power player, a walking press release. To be clear, Sloane said, voice smooth enough to skate on, we appreciate that you intervened, but you put yourself in danger, which puts us in a very difficult position. As Avery thought, of course. Atlas pressed closer. He smelled like rain and unsupervised joy. Avery scratched the soft spot behind his ear, a habit older than language. The dog sighed. Graham's gaze flicked to her hand, to Atlas, to the phones. He straightened, peeling his coat into place. Give me my dog, he said. She rose, slow, meeting his eyes. They were colder up close. Take him, she said, and the words tasted like untying a knot. She released the collar. Atlas resisted, then leaned reluctantly into his owner. Dogs knew things. Next time, Graham said, don't make impulsive choices that create risk. Next time, Avery said, hold the leash. A laughter ripple moved through the bystanders. Sloane's mouth tightened, then smoothed. She pivoted toward the nearest phone lens and said, let's all clear the path, please. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Avery bent to pick up her scuffed earbuds. Her left shoe's sole had peeled back like a tongue. The adrenaline ebbed, replaced by a low, familiar ache, humiliation's cousin. She heard her mother in the echo chamber of memory. You can be gentle and brave at the same time. That's the hard way, but it's the right way. She turned to leave. Wait, a teenager called, breathless and earnest. That was badass. Avery managed a nod. She kept walking, counting breaths to 10, then again. Do not cry by the water. Do not hand them that. Behind her, Sloane's voice carried. Graham, let me handle the narrative. We'll emphasize your concern for public safety. Irresponsible jogger endangers herself. Heroic owner retrieves dog. Something like that. Avery paused. The audacity was almost funny. Almost. She faced the water and the city beyond it, those fluorescent bones of cranes and towers. Somewhere inside that skyline, her last name was etched on the brass of old boardroom doors. She declosed those doors years ago. She debuilt a life out here, on purpose, with paint under her nails and thrifted boots and a quiet apartment above a bakery that woke at 4 a.m. Her name belonged to kids who thought the sun was something you could glue into a sky you made yourself. Her name did not belong in Sloane's mouth. She glanced back once. Graham was already tapping his phone, Atlas leaning into his leg as if apologizing for a storm he couldn't forecast. For a blink, his face softened toward the dog, a hairline fracture in the granite. Then it was gone, replaced by the mask men wore when they'd rather be a company than a person. Avery walked to the edge of the pier and sat, feet hovering above the black-green water. A fairy horn groaned. The air smelled like kelp and diesel and the sweet ghost of donuts from the bakery's vent. Her hands shook a little, the way they always did after adrenaline. She stared at the reflection of the skyline until the ripples smoothed. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, hi. If that was you at Gasworks, you okay? N. She stared. Only one N would text like that with no signature, no arrays. Of course he'd hear things first. The city's veins ran through veterinarians and baristas more reliably than through CEOs. She typed, erased, typed again. I'm fine. Long story. Another buzz, different number. A link from a colleague at the school. Is this you? She tapped. The video had a caption that made her stomach drop. Billionaire warns reckless jogger after dog rescue. Already 40,000 views, climbing like ivy. In the thumbnail, her face was half-turned, hair wild, hand on Atlas's collar. Graham towered, finger half-raised, a judge in a riverside courtroom. Comments bloomed in real time. Team Dog, Team Billionaire, Team Drama. She watched the first 10 seconds with the sound off. She didn't need the audio. She could lip-read the word that would anchor the clip. Stupid. Her thumb hovered over share, over save, over delete. She locked the screen and put her phone face down on the wood. Another ferry moaned across the lake like something ancient and tired. You did the right thing, she told herself, almost believing it. You'll wake up tomorrow and this will have become something else. She didn't yet know how right she was. A car door slammed in the lot behind her. Voices churned, one low and irritated, one bright and sharp. Footsteps approached, quick, decisive. Avery didn't turn. The water had become a mirror and a map, and she needed one steady thing to look at while the world around her recalibrated. Ms. Bennett, a man's baritone said, closer now, official and practiced. Mr. Sterling would like a word. She exhaled, stood, and faced the darkness walking toward her. By morning, the clip would detonate past 1 million views. By noon, strangers would be arguing about her shoes, her tone, her worth. And by nightfall, someone would whisper the one thing no one here suspected. Avery Bennett wasn't just the girl who saved a dog. She was the storm Graham Sterling couldn't see coming. By sunrise, the video had done what videos do when they touch money, cruelty, and a pretty dog. It mushroomed. Clips of Graham's that was stupid were now stitched into dance trends and duets, the sound remixed with barking and cash register chimes. Headlines framed the moment like a courtroom exhibit. Tech billionaire SCOLDS jogger after dog save. Others went harder. Rich guy calls hero stupid. A Seattle morning show debated it between weather and traffic. A pundit with lacquered hair asked if performative heroism was a threat to public safety. A pop psychologist sighed about class-coded language and risk. Avery tried not to watch. She brewed coffee in her small kitchen above the bakery and focused on the ritual: scoop, pour, wait. The baristas downstairs clanged open at 5. The smell of dough and vanilla rose through the floorboards like kindness. She could almost believe it was an ordinary day. Then her phone lit with a notification bloom. A stranger had DM'd a picture of her from 2 years ago at a thrift store, caption, "She loves attention." Another wrote, "If she died, it would have been Graham's fault. Grow up." Her chest tightened. She set the phone screen down and breathed the way she told her kids to breathe when a painting smudged. In 4, hold 4, out 4. Chill the panic with math. Somewhere in her mind her mother's voice steadied, the Appalachian lilt soft but iron. Kindness isn't weakness. It's precision under pressure. Her doorbell buzzed. She froze. It buzzed again, followed by 3 quick taps, Noah's code since forever. She opened the door. Noah Ray stood there in a mariner's cap and vet scrubs under a denim jacket, damp from mist. He held 2 paper cups like a peace offering. "You're trending," he said gently. "No kidding." They sat at her tiny table. He set the cups down and searched her face the way he assessed a skittish shelter dog. No sudden movements. The city's going to do what the city does. "You didn't do anything wrong." "I touched his dog," she said. "Then he touched my throat with a word in front of 1,000 strangers. That word says more about him than you." Avery stared out the window. Sloane was there. "I know she'll spin it. Reckless jogger endangers herself. Compassionate owner intervenes. They'll call me a hazard in yoga pants." "I know Sloane. She's allergic to accountability." Noah hesitated. "Your last name would stop this in an hour." Avery shut her eyes. "Don't. I'm not pushing. But you could make one call and the machine would point a different direction. And then I'd be a different person again. The one with security teams and gold pens. I like being the woman who has to tape her sneaker." He nodded. "Then we work with the name you've got." Her phone buzzed again. "Principal Donnelly," she answered. "Aaron, I'm okay." "I saw the video," Donnelly said, voice tight. "I'm so sorry. Listen, District Communications wants to handle press. Also, there's a complication. Sterling Foundation is a major donor to the arts grants we applied for. They're hosting a donors reception Friday. Our school made the finalist list. We need a representative, ideally the art teacher." Avery let silence fill the line like water. "You want me to shake the billionaire's hand?" "I want you to stand where your kid's funding lives," Donnelly said softly. "You can decline. I'll go instead." Avery thought of her 5th graders, their gummy smiles and messy galaxies. Paint is expensive. Clay is expensive. The kiln that conked out in March needs parts the district couldn't afford. "No," she said. "I'll go." "Are you sure?" "No," Avery said, "but yes." After the call, Noah leaned back. "Walk me through it." "They want me as the face of a grant. Sterling will be there, Sloane glued to his elbow, narrative sharp enough to slice bread." Noah blew out a breath. "They'll try to co-opt you into their version. Smile with Atlas, post a caption about safety. Then they own your story. Let them try." He smiled, proud and worried. "You always were stubborn when the work mattered." She changed and took the bus to school because routine was a rope you could pull yourself hand over hand along when the ground shifted. In room 214, she set out water cups and cheap pallets. Kids tumbled in like weather, loud and unself-conscious, arguing about cereal and space dragons. Mr. Cho from 5th grade homeroom leaned in the doorway and lifted his chin. "You okay?" "I'm okay." It was both true and aspirational. Halfway through 2nd period, a knock. A woman in a navy blazer with a lanyard stepped in, smile professional. "Ms. Bennett, I'm with the district communications office. Quick chat." Avery followed her into the hall. The woman Tara held a tablet like a shield. "We suggest a brief statement. Grateful the dog is safe, grateful for community concerns, mindful of safety rules. Neutral calm, no blame. It cools the cycle." "You want me to apologize?" "Yes." "We want to de-escalate. Mr. Sterling's team reached out. They're open to a joint message." Avery felt a slow, clean anger rise like tide. "I won't co-sign a lie." Tara measured her. "Then at least avoid adding heat. Think of the kids." "I am." When the bell rang and the hallways exploded, Avery ducked back into room 214 like a swimmer hitting air. She watched her students paint suns the color of sliced mango. One girl lifted her arm, orange from elbow to wrist, and said, "Ms. B, can I paint with my hands if I wash after?" Avery grinned. "Yes. Hands are brushes with better opinions." At lunch, she sat alone in the staff room and picked at a salad that tasted like obligation. Her phone buzzed again, another unknown number. The message was a smile that never touched eyes. "Hi, Avery. Sloan here. Would love to hop on a quick call about Friday night. We can turn this into a positive for you, for everyone." Avery stared at the screen until the words blurred. She typed, "Friday is about my students, not optics," then deleted it. She typed, "No," then deleted that too. She finally sent nothing. By last bell, the video had split into versions. Some made her a fool, some a hero, most a content object to be bounced like a rubber ball between outrage and delight. A podcast mocked her shoes. A wellness influencer praised her embodied courage and plugged a supplement. None of it felt like her. She stayed late cleaning brushes, lining them on paper towels like small birds. The sun slipped down. The building settled. Donnelly popped in, eyes kind. "I'm proud of you," she said quietly. "And I'm sorry you have to be brave for money that should already be here." "Me too." On her way out, Avery cut through the playground. The chain-link fence buzzed with evening heat. A kid had left a chalk drawing by the slide. A dog with a gold crown labeled Atlas. She smiled despite everything. Her phone rang. A voice she knew from every tech interview purred into her ear. "Ms. Bennett, Graham Sterling, may I have a moment?" Her spine braced. "You've had enough of my moments." "I'm calling to express concern for how yesterday unfolded," he said, as if reading from a teleprompter. "I'm glad Atlas is safe. Let's ensure future interactions are handled with appropriate protocols." "You're not talking to your board, Graham." "A beat, then I'll say it plainly. I'm sorry I called you stupid." The word hung between them like a bridge with a missing plank. She said nothing. "My PR director will connect about a joint statement," he continued. "And about Friday, I hope we can agree the event is not the place for drama." "It's a fundraiser," Avery said, "not a court." "Exactly. I'll see you there," she said, and ended the call before he could varnish it with one more polite insult. She stood on the sidewalk while the city moved around her. Buses sighing, bikes threading traffic, a siren somewhere she was going to have to untie in front of cameras. She imagined walking into a room curated by Sloan, light flattering and angles controlled, Atlas muzzled by narrative, and Graham wearing remorse like a limited edition. Fine, she thought, bring the room. When she reached her apartment, the bakery downstairs was cooling racks of crullers, sugar fogging the air. She leaned on the stairwell railing, eyes closed, then went up and opened her laptop. She drafted lesson plans, an email to Donnelly, and a note to herself in a document titled Friday. "Remember who you're there for. Remember who you are when no one's filming. Hold the leash." On impulse, she texted Noah, "You coming Friday?" He replied instantly, "Wouldn't miss it. I'll stand where you can see me. Anchor point." She put the phone down. In the window, the city glowed, not gentler but honest. She rested her forehead against the cool glass and let the hum of everything fold around her. By the time she slept, the internet had already chosen a winner and a villain 3 times. By the time she woke, the guest list for Friday leaked, and there her name was, tucked between donors like a dare. The room would be beautiful. The knives would be, too. By Friday morning, the city felt like it had opinions. News push alerts framed Avery as either a saint with bad timing or a chaos agent in discount leggings. Her inbox stacked up with strangers' advice, half of it kind, half of it knives with emojis taped on. She made toast and didn't eat it. She braided her hair, unbraided it, braided it again. When the buzzer rang, she flinched hard enough to spill coffee. A courier stood downstairs with a garment bag blacker than midnight and a slim white envelope. On the tag, Sterling Foundation Donor Reception. Inside the envelope, an NDA, a schedule, a note in a font that looked richer than velvet. We'd love to provide wardrobe to ensure cohesion with our event aesthetic. Please arrive 1 hour early for a short walkthrough. Sloane Kingsley. Avery thumbed the zipper down. The dress inside was a silver slip that would photograph beautifully and belong to someone else's personality. She held it up to her mirror, then looked at the clothes she actually lived in. She hung the silver back and texted Noah. They sent me an NDA and a shiny personality transplant. He replied, where you bring spine. At school, she tried to let routine smooth her edges. She showed fifth graders how to draw negative space around their palms, made jokes about celebrity outlines. A small boy with careful eyes asked if grown-ups on the internet could get timeout. They should, she said, but they mostly get followers. Laughter gave everyone a few inches of air. At lunch, Principal Donnelly ducked into room 214 with a folder and her "you might not like this" face. District Legal wants you to sign the Foundation's NDA, she said. They claim it's standard. No recording backstage, no disparagement, no social posts without mutual approval. Avery slid the papers back. Standard for people who need secrecy, the way other people need glasses. I can run interference, Donnelly offered. But we need the grant more than we need a clean conscience. Avery breathed in for 4, held for 4. We can have both. I'll go. I won't sign. Donnelly hesitated. They might freeze us out. Then they'll do it on camera. Maybe that's useful data. On her prep period, Avery's phone lit with a call from an unknown Seattle area code. Ms. Bennett, Sandra Patel, counsel for Sterling Foundation, the voice said briskly. We want tonight to be smooth. Please avoid provocative statements. Define provocative, Avery said. Suggesting Mr. Sterling endangered anyone. Implying negligence. Anything that could be construed as defamatory. You mean the truth in an inconvenient outfit. A bead of frost. If you defame Mr. Sterling, we'll act. You're a public school employee. It would be unfortunate if your district had to choose between donors and drama. The call clicked off like a door with an expensive lock. Avery stared at the wall clock, at the slow, confident swing of the second hand, and felt a quiet, durable anger seat itself in her chest like a steady passenger. She pulled a post-it and wrote in block letters, "Stay factual, stay kind, stay free." At 3:45, she met Noah on the sidewalk outside the museum, a clean, modern box on the water where rich people like to feel generous. He wore the same denim jacket, the same mariner's cap, the same face that always said, "I see you, not your headlines." "You good?" he asked. "Define good." He held out a small velvet pouch. Inside lay a silver dog tag engraved atlas with a tiny thunderbolt etched beneath. "Backup charm," he said, "in case you need to remember who you saved." "You're ridiculous," she said, and the word tasted like relief. A valet in a black peacoat waved them toward a side entrance. Inside, the lobby smelled like lemon and old money. Staff moved like choreography. Sloane materialized in a white suit that could scalp a weaker woman on sight, arms opening into an embrace she did not complete. "Avery," she purred. "So glad you came early." "Against my better judgment," Avery said. Sloane's smile sharpened. "Let's run through the program. You'll stand here." She guided Avery to a mark on the marble near a hedge wall printed with the Sterling Foundation logo. "Donors will enter. You'll greet them with Principal Donnelly, quick photo with Mr. Sterling. Then we'll pop Atlas in for a sweet beat. You'll say something about community and safety. No need to rehash yesterday." "Atlas hates flash," Noah said mildly. Sloane didn't look at him. "We'll be brief." "Brief is still flash," he said. "He's noise sensitive." Sloane tipped her head the way you tip it at an intern who has an opinion. "Our handler has him acclimated." "Your handler has him for 2 days," Noah said. I've treated him for 2 years. Sloane's smile thinned. Duly noted. Graham appeared then in a navy tux built by a god of angles. He was less imposing at arm's length than he was in headlines. Or maybe he was more human. The blue at his temples whispered that time touched him too. Atlas trotted beside him in a gleaming leather collar, tail sheepish, eyes bright. Graham's gaze flicked over Avery, assessing, pausing at the scuff on her heel as if it were a thesis statement. "Miss Bennett," he said carefully, "thank you for coming." "I'm here for my students," she said. "Of course." He adjusted his cufflinks, the kind of nervous tell rich men train out of themselves. "About last night." "We covered it," she said. "You apologized. The internet did whatever it does with apologies." His eyes cooled. "Then let's give them something else to do." Sloane clapped once. "Positions, please, quick rehearsal, cameras at half power." Avery stepped onto her tape mark. A cluster of junior publicists hovered with tablets like altar boys with glossy Bibles. One of them, a young woman with worry drawn tight across her mouth, brushed past Avery and hissed, not quite whispering, "This is the bait. They'll push you to mention safety so they can pivot to reckless teacher. Please don't." Then she vanished into the flock. Minor twist, Avery thought, and felt her ribs tighten around the new information. She slid the velvet pouch into her pocket and lifted her chin. 3-2, a cameraman counted. Lights flared to a polite medium burn. Graham turned toward the invisible donors, deploying his practiced warmth. "Community matters," he said. "We're here to invest in the future." "Our kids' hands are already building it," Avery said, not loudly, not combative, just interrupting the rhythm Sloane had written. "We just need enough brushes." Something like surprise crossed Graham's face fast as a fish. The cameraman lowered his hand. Sloane's voice slipped into Avery's ear like a draft under a door. "Great, save it for the live room." The rehearsal ended. Guests began to arrive. Names with commas in the middle, husbands and wives plus funds, legacies plus LLCs. The hedge wall grew a skin of step-and-repeat smiles. A string quartet poured money-scented Mozart into the air. Avery ducked into the restroom where the light was brutal. She didn't change into the silver slip. She fixed her braid, pressed a cool paper towel to the back of her neck, and read the post-it she'd stuck inside her clutch. "Stay factual. Stay kind. Stay free." When she returned to the lobby, the energy had shifted from rehearsal tension to opening night appetite. Sloane floated toward her like a good idea. "Final note," she said smoothly. "We're going to introduce a short compilation, sweet clips of Atlas over the years. It softens the room. Then we'll bring him out for your moment." "My moment?" Avery asked. "The hug," Sloane said, as if explaining rain to a child. "You kneel, he nuzzles, redemption arc. Headline writes itself." "I'm not interested in redemption. I don't need." Sloane blinked once. "Everything's a deal, Avery, even dignity, especially dignity." Noah's hand found the small of Avery's back for a second, an anchor touch. "You owe them nothing," he murmured. "Places," a producer called. "We're live in 90. They moved toward the doors to the main gallery. The ceiling soared, the lights shone at rich people angles. The stage waited with a podium that had seen marriages mended and egos baptized. Graham took his mark. Sloane signaled the handler. The handler signaled Atlas. The dog saw Avery and made a small, involuntary sound. A memory of the lakefront pressed into one bright bark. Graham's grip loosened at the wrong beat. The leather leash slipped from his hand. Atlas bolted, straight toward Avery, straight past the cameras, a golden streak across the marble. The crowd's gasp was a single animal. Avery didn't think. She stepped forward, knees bending, palms open, calling softly into the roar. "Atlas, hey." Flash noise, the world tilted. Atlas came like a comet, gold, terrified, fast. Avery didn't flinch. She dropped to a knee, body turned sideways to look smaller, hands low and open. "Atlas, buddy, easy." The dog skidded, nails skittering on marble, eyes saucer-wide at the white-hot lights. Cameras rose like a forest. A burst of flash popped. Atlas hesitated, trembling at the edge of panic. "Dim the front wash," Avery called, not asking. "Voices down, don't reach." Her tone cut through the gloss, clean and calm. The lighting tech glanced at Sloane. Sloane hesitated, then slashed 2 fingers. The lights softened. Avery lowered her head and kept her eyes at Atlas's shoulder, not his stare. "Hey, you're safe." She tapped her thigh once. Atlas took 3 uncertain steps, then the last 2 in a rush, folding into her like a wave meeting shore. She wrapped one arm around his chest, the other under his collar, thumb finding the spot that unbuttoned his fear. The crowd exhaled in a single, grateful laugh. Graham stood frozen, the empty leash in his hand like a bad metaphor. For a flicker, embarrassment cracked through the tux. He moved toward them, checked himself at Avery's palm lifted without looking up. "Give him 30 seconds, she said quietly. "He's still vibrating." Noah arrived at her shoulder, breath steady. "Back room," he murmured. "Water, low light." Sloane materialized, smile restored. "What a moment," she breathed, already storyboarding. "We'll pivot." Hero teacher soothes frightened pup, community rallies. "We'll get him out of the glare," Noah said, deadpan. "Then we can talk about adjectives." They moved as a tiny procession. Avery, Atlas, Noah. Cameras pushed and were pushed back. Someone's flute of champagne tipped and burst into sugar on the floor. In the green room, the air cooled. Atlas panted hard, drool threading from his jowls. Noah knelt, checked paws, ears, pulse. "He's okay," he said. "Stressed, not injured." A staffer brought a stainless bowl. Avery held it while Atlas drank, slow and messy. The handler floated near the door, defensive and wounded. "He's been fine all afternoon," she said. "Crowds never." "Crowds plus flash plus the wrong cadence from the wrong human," Noah said gently. "It happens." Graham stepped in, the tux now feeling like a uniform he'd grown out of. "Thank you," he said to Avery. The words tasted unused. "I should've." "Held the leash," she finished, not unkind. "You can say it. It's just a sentence." He met her eyes and for a few beats dropped the boardroom. "I should have held the leash." Sloane's smile thinned. "We should get back," she said. "The donors." "The donors can finish their canapes," Avery said. "Atlas is a living thing, not a set piece." The junior publicist who had warned her earlier slipped in a towel, hands shaking. Avery took it, dried the dog's chest, and mouthed "thank you." The woman's eyes shone with the specific relief of someone who has toiled too long for the wrong general. When Atlas's breath evened, Avery stood. "You'll be okay," she told the dog, rubbing the soft patch under his jaw. Atlas leaned once more, committing the scent of her to whatever place dogs record faith. Noah clipped the leash with a practiced click. Back in the gallery, the quartet had shifted to something warm and forgetful. Donors were already reshaping the story into cocktail conversation. The hedge wall waited, hungry for a happy ending. Avery gave it a polite nod and kept walking. She wasn't a character they could write without her pen. Sloane caught her by the elbow near the service corridor. Her voice lost its satin for a second. "Where did you learn to talk like that?" she asked. "Not the dog, your cadence, the dim, the wash, the way you took the room." "Teaching 5th grade art," Avery said, "and loving animals." Sloane studied her, pupils narrowing. "What boarding school taught you those vowels?" The smile came back, but her eyes were doing math. "Who are you, really?" "An underpaid public employee in thrifted black," Avery said. "You sent me a silver slip. I sent it back." Sloane's phone buzzed in her palm. She didn't look down. "I'm sure we'll be seeing more of each other." To the junior publicist at her shoulder, low and flat. "Pull everything on Avery Bennett. Family, schooling, donors, past employers. Start with old line registries, not LinkedIn." The publicist nodded once. The way you nod when you know your soul will need a bath later. The event limped toward its speeches. Graham took the podium, launched into a version of generosity that could be quoted on a tote bag. Avery stood with Principal Donnelly in the second row, Atlas safe off stage with Noah. Donnelly leaned close. "I'm sorry he bolted," she whispered. "I'm proud of you." The kids would have screamed. "They already are," Avery said, "in the good way." The speech ended. Checks were pledged. A board member made a joke about naming rights that got a laugh and a grimace. The room broke into curated mingling. Graham approached again, hands empty this time. "You saved me," he said, which was not the truth but close to a true thing. "Let me make it right with your school." "Make it right with your dog," Avery said. "Our school can't be a PR bandage." His jaw worked, something like irritation wrestling with respect. "You won't take the easy win." "It isn't one." They held each other's gaze a beat too long. Then Sloane slid between them like a blade. "Photo with the principal," she said to Avery, already arranging the frame. "Then media line." "Then I go home," Avery said. "I have first period." In the rideshare later, the city smeared itself against the windows. Noah sat beside her, silent until she was. "They're going to dig," she said. "They were always going to dig." "What if they find it?" Her voice was barely there. Noah turned, gentle and firm. "Avery, we didn't choose your last name. We chose what to do with it. If they find it, we manage the reveal on your terms." Her throat tightened. She saw her mother at a long table, hands stained with soil from backyard tomatoes, saying, "We made a fortune doing numbers. You should make a life doing color." She saw the house in Newport with its windows like eyes, the marble that echoed when you were lonely, the lawyers with their folders of forever. She remembered the day she signed the trust that placed almost everything out of her own immediate reach, a line of ink between her and gravity. Ethan, the family attorney, had asked if she was sure. She had said yes because she wanted to mean it. She had said yes because she feared what the money could make of her if it was too easy to touch. "I hate that they think money is the only language," she said now. "Then keep speaking yours," Noah said. "Let them subtitle it." Her phone buzzed. A text from Donnelly. "We're still finalists, but the foundation recommends a postponement after tonight's incident. I'm furious. Call me morning." Avery stared at the screen until the words blurred. "They're punishing the kids." "Or testing you," Noah said. "Either way, you don't flinch." Another buzz. Unknown number again. A single photo. Avery at 16, hair longer, standing on a cliff above water the color of secret glass. A summer house behind her with white columns and a view that cost a dynasty. She remembered the picture. She hadn't posted it. A second text followed. "She's not who she says she is. Draft op-eds by morning. SK." Her stomach dropped, then steadied. Sloane had done enough background to sniff at the door, not enough to pick the lock. Yet. A call blinked in, the junior publicist. Avery answered. The young woman's whisper shook. "They're digging where you don't want anyone to dig. I'm sending you what they flagged. Be careful. Also, for what it's worth, you were the only honest thing in that room." The line clicked dead. Avery looked at Noah. "I need to tell Donnelly something before someone else does." "You can tell her a version," he said. "Your version, transparent, not performative." Avery nodded, feeling the decision slot into place like a gear finding its teeth. "If they try to use my history to shame me, I'll use it to fund the kiln, the brushes, the field trips. I'll pull the truth out like a thorn and show them it's just a splinter." Her screen lit again. Sloane this time, slick and bright. "Let's reset, Avery. Private mixer tomorrow night, small crowd, no cameras. Come as my guest. We can put this to bed and set you up for real impact. Wear the silver. 8 p.m. Vesper Club." Noah read over her shoulder and snorted. "That's bait with sequins." "Part of me wants to walk right into it," Avery said. "Part of me wants to burn the net." "Maybe you do both," Noah said. "Walk in holding a match." Avery typed, "I'll be there." She hit send and felt the night sharpen. Out the window, the fairies made their slow, stubborn lines across the water like promises kept in bad weather. The Vesper Club hid behind a false storefront that pretended to sell clocks. Inside, time bent in favor of the rich. Smoked glass, velvet walls, low lamps that made cheekbones and secrets look expensive. A host in a tux the color of ink took Avery's name, registered the micro-stillness before his smile, and then glided her down a corridor where laughter sounded curated. Avery wore a black jumpsuit with a clean line, boots she could run in, and the small silver dog tag in her pocket like a private vow. Noah walked beside her until a woman with a tablet and teeth like ice held up a palm. "Guest list is 1, she said. Ms. Kingsley's instructions." "It's fine," Avery told him. "Anchor point from the bar." He touched 2 fingers to the brim of his cap. "I'll be within sight." Sloane materialized as if she'd been poured from the walls, white silk suit, hair sleek, phone in one hand like a scepter. "Avery, you look credible." She kissed the air near Avery's cheek. "Come, let's fix what the internet broke." They moved through a small crowd that smelled like expensive citrus and practiced empathy. Names Avery knew from museum plaques and venture headlines registered her and performed interest. Sloane steered her into a side salon labeled Content Suite in tiny brass letters. A screen glowed. A notary sat quietly in the corner beside a stack of paperwork thick enough to be furniture. Sloane set a patent leather folder on a glass table, opened it to a clipped rectangle. Mutual understandings. Joint message. Limited media availability. Non-disparagement, and an invitation for you to serve as a community arts ambassador under the Foundation's umbrella. You'll love the umbrella. It keeps you dry. Avery flicked the first page with a nail. "This is an NDA with sparkles." "It's a bridge," Sloane said sweetly. "You're on an island. We build to you, you walk to us, and we meet in the middle. Everyone wins, especially your kids." "Or I sign a leash," Avery said, "and you walk me where you want." Sloane's smile was all winter sun. "You're very quotable. We can work with quotable. But we need alignment before we roll the package." "The package." Sloane tapped the screen. The room dimmed. A highlight reel bloomed. The park, the car, the snap of Graham's word lip-read 1,000 times. Then cuts, edits, slow-motion frames of Avery's hand on Atlas's collar, a pundit's voiceover about reckless altruism, a freeze on Avery's face with captions flirtatious with contempt, hero or hazard. The soundtrack shimmered with strings designed to tell the crowd what to feel. At the 90-second mark, a still photograph blinked. A younger Avery on a cliff in summer light, hair wind-lifted, a white columned house blurring behind her. The image lingered just long enough for recognition to itch. Avery kept her breathing even. "Where did you get that photo?" Sloane didn't glance away from the screen. "The internet is a museum with poor curation and excellent memory. Lovely house." "It isn't mine," Avery said. "No house is any one person's," Sloane mused. "They belong to history. To families." She cut the video with a flick. "So, the plan. We play the package in the main room with a softer cut. You kneel for Atlas, we sell reconciliation. The donors feel bathed in goodness. The boys with microphones get bored and go home." "Selling reconciliation," Avery said. "I'm not kneeling for your storyline." Sloane's tone cooled. "You misread the room last night and still stole it. I respect that. But this room isn't a park. This room belongs to me." Avery glanced toward the door. Through the crack she could see Noah at the bar, posture casual, eyes on her. Anchor point. She turned back. "I'll speak for my students. I'll speak for the dog. I won't memorize your sermon." Sloane's phone buzzed. She looked down, skimmed, smiled a private smile that belonged to a chess player who just moved a bishop you didn't notice. "We'll start in 5, she said, and floated out, trailing perfume and leverage. The notary cleared his throat. "Would you like water?" "I'd like a world where kids get brushes without meetings," Avery said, but took the water. In the main lounge, a low stage was set with 2 chairs and a table like a negotiation. Graham stood near a pillar, jawline impossible, attention divided between donors and a point in space only he could see. When he noticed Avery, a measurable softness crossed his face, then hardened by reflex. He approached with the choreography of a man taught to appear unhurried. "Thank you for coming," he said. "We keep using the same sentences," Avery said. "Then let me try a different one." He paused, as if looking for a door that wasn't there. "I intend to support your school." "With a check or with less pressure?" Avery asked. "Both," he said, and it sounded almost like a human decision. Before she could answer, Sloane slid between them with a microphone and a smile that signaled cameras. "Friends," she sang lightly. The room dipped into that hush money buys. "We're grateful to gather for a conversation about community, safety, and the small acts that hold a city together." She led Avery onto the stage with a guiding palm at her elbow that felt like a dare. Graham took the other chair. The screen behind them lit with a still frame of Atlas in golden profile. The crowd turned its many faces toward the story they'd been promised. "We'd love to begin," Sloane said, "with a look back at a moment that brought us all here." "Pause," Avery said, into Sloane's microphone before Sloane could move it away. She kept her voice low and kind, the tone she saved for skittish kids and skittish adults pretending not to be. "Before we play any tape, I want to say one thing." Sloane's lashes didn't blink. "Of course." Avery looked at the crowd, at the glittering attention that wanted to consume her and call it care. "A dog ran into traffic. I pulled him out. I'd do it again. I should have used a different grip and Mr. Sterling should have held the leash. Those are facts, not optics. The rest, the heat, the hashtags, the posture, belongs to people trying to sell you a feeling." She turned to Graham. "I don't need an apology in a room like this. I need fewer rooms where only people like you get to speak into a microphone about what matters." For 2 long beats, the room forgot to breathe. Then a scattered garnish of applause rose and fell, the kind you hear when an audience isn't sure if they're allowed to clap. Sloane didn't flinch, which told Avery she'd anticipated refusal and had a second blade. "Beautifully said," Sloane replied, smile tight. "And because we agree facts matter, here are a few more." The screen flickered. The package rolled, but this cut was sharper. A still of the summer house cliff. A close-up zoom to a bracelet on teenage Avery's wrist. A small, old-fashioned monogrammed B. A crossfade to a charity registry from a Newport gala 15 years ago. Bennett's Summer Arts Fund, underwritten by the Bennett family. The name glowed without context, without assertion, but with intent. A ripple moved through the crowd, the kind you feel when a storm shifts direction. Graham's head tilted almost imperceptibly, eyes narrowing like a lens recalibrating. Sloane leaned into the microphone with velvet pity. "Some of us," she cooed, "have complicated histories with power. That doesn't make us villains. It makes us human." Avery felt the cold force of a pivot, not a revelation yet, but a seeding. She could deny, rage, run. Or she could do the thing her mother taught her under real sky, refuse a framing and make a picture anyway. She stood. "My students' names are on their paintings," she said, "and that's the only registry that matters to me tonight." She handed the microphone back to Sloane like returning a borrowed thing and stepped off the stage. In the crush at the edge of the room, the junior publicist appeared, breathless. "They think they found a thread," she whispered. "They haven't pulled it yet, be ready." She slipped a card into Avery's hand. A personal email, a burner number, a scribbled line. "You were right about the lights." Avery nodded, throat tight. She threaded through the guests, eyes on Noah. He was already moving, carving a path, the bar's amber glow making a halo of his patience. They were almost to the door when someone blocked their way. Graham. He looked less like a logo and more like a person whose night had just become a math problem with a surprising variable. "That photo," he said, voice lower, private, That house. What about it? He searched her face as if it contained a password. I know that name. Lots of people do. Not lots, he said quietly. The right few. What? Sloane's voice sailed over the speakers behind them, buttery and triumphant. Community thrives when everyone is honest about where they come from. Outside, the night was marine and alive. Cars hissed by like thoughts you couldn't quiet. Avery's phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number with a Rhode Island area code. The text was a single sentence that turned the air colder. We need to discuss Bennett Capital's historic position in Sterling. Call me tonight. Avery looked up. In the Vesper's smoked glass window, they were reflected together. Her, Noah, and Graham framed by a world that believed it owned definitions. She closed her fingers around the dog tag until the edges pressed a promise into her palm. Tomorrow, she said to Noah, to herself, to the city, we choose the stage. And to Graham, almost gently, hold your leash. Morning came gray and indecisive. Seattle wore a bruise of clouds as Avery walked the 3 blocks to school with coffee she didn't taste. Her phone pulsed with missed calls. Donnelly, an unknown Rhode Island number, "No, is you okay?" And a calendar invite labeled simply, "Discuss position, 11:30 a.m., Pier 52, Suite 700. She taught first period as if the world hadn't shifted under her shoes. Kids painted solar systems that looked like fruit bowls. She swapped out murky water, praised brave color, reminded one chronic eraser that mistakes were just drafts with costumes. When the bell rang, she told Mr. Cho she had a quick meeting and would be back by lunch. Suite 700 looked like restraint funded it. Pale wood, quiet art, a wall of glass staring at fairies threading the water like stubborn bees. A receptionist with a New England surname ushered Avery into a conference room where a man in a slate suit stood to greet her. "Avery," he said, voice warm in a practiced way. "Ethan Ward, Bennett Family Counsel." He didn't offer a hand. He gestured to a chair like an apology. "You look well." He gestured to a chair like an apology. "You look well." "What?" "I look like a woman who was called stupid on the internet for touching a dog," she said, and sat. He smiled, brief and rueful. "I saw you handled it with Bennett poise." "Don't do that." "Fair." He slid a folder across the table. The short version. Bennett Capital Holdings holds 12.8% of Sterling Technologies through an early SPV that converted at series. See, there are super voting protections and a narrow set of consent rights. Communications that could materially affect brand, board composition, debt covenants related to reputational risk. Until last night, those were exercised via the Foundation's proxy. And now, your trust sunset provision matured on your 27th birthday. There's also a trigger around direct reputational injury tied to public misstatement toward a private citizen. The trustees believe last night qualifies. He folded his hands. The proxy transfers to you at noon today, unless you decline. What? Avery stared at the folder as if it contained a live wire. "My mother didn't want me to have this kind of power." "She wanted you to choose when to use it," Ethan said softly. "Different design." Avery let silence count to 8. "If I accept, what can I actually do?" "You could call a special meeting, install a board observer, veto any crisis communication that frames you, any private citizen, as reckless, require corrective statements, condition future donations to your district on non-interference by Sterling's PR arm. You could also require Atlas be removed from brand activations and placed with a trainer you designate." A flicker of amusement crossed his face. "Your vet friend, perhaps." Avery's throat tightened. This sounds like revenge wearing philanthropy. "It can be accountability wearing truth." Ethan leaned back. "Or you can decline and go back to your classroom and let strangers define you." She looked out at the ferries. 2 crossed in the channel, horns low and honest. "If I accept, I become the thing I ran from." "You become the person who decides what your name means," he said. Either way, the internet will make a myth. You can at least make the facts. Her phone vibrated. Noah. She answered on speaker. You were right about the bait with sequins, he said without preamble. Sloan's team is calling bloggers with anonymous context about a Newport summer house and a bee on a bracelet. Ethan raised an eyebrow and I told you so italics. Avery closed her eyes. They're going to out me anyway. Probably by dinner, Noah said. Better if it's your words. She opened her eyes. Then we do it clean, she looked at Ethan. I accept the proxy, but I want conditions. Ethan slid a form forward and a pen that felt heavier than a pen. Say them. Avery took a breath. 1. A full, unqualified apology from Sterling to the public school teachers of Seattle, not to me. 2. A multi-year grant to our district's arts programs, administered independently. 3. No more using Atlas as a brandable prop. He's a living creature. He gets a plan and a home. 4. A statement clarifying that rescue isn't recklessness, that compassion and caution coexist. 5. Any piece Sloan's pitching that names me gets killed. Ethan's smile was small and real. I'll be your punctuation. She signed. The ink looked like a question answering itself. At noon, the proxy shifted. At 12:03, Ethan looped in Sterling's general counsel on a video call that felt like daylight on a vampire. At 12:17, a calendar invite arrived from Sterling HQ for a brief alignment. At 1, Avery walked into a conference room lined with glass and men who liked glass. Sloan sat at the end of the table, whiteness of her suit an act of war. Graham stood by the window, jaw tight as a promise. Graham started, Ms. Bennett. Avery, she said. Avery, I hear you now hold a proxy. Correct, she said. I'd rather hold a paintbrush, but here we are. What? Sloan crossed her legs, smile an instrument. Avery, darling, surely we can treat this like adults. We all want the same thing, stability, generosity, narrative clarity. I want kids to have brushes and a dog to have peace, Avery said. You want to own the story forever. Graham's gaze moved between them like a ref watching two fighters who adored rules. Let's not escalate. This isn't escalation, Avery said. It's boundaries. She slid a page across the table, the 5 conditions. You'll meet these, we'll move forward. Sterling's counsel skimmed, frowned. An apology to teachers, that sets a precedent. The precedent is respect, Avery said. You can try it. Sloan laughed once, bright and small. Adorable. You walk into a boardroom and think 5 demands will. Ethan spoke for the first time, voice gentle steel. Section 5(3) B of the shareholders' agreement requires Bennett consent for crisis communications. Section 7. 1C allows a special meeting to remove a director for cause defined as materially misleading statements in a public incident. We can debate whether last night qualifies, or we can agree. The room chilled. Graham read the page again, slower. He ran a hand across his mouth, a gesture that made him suddenly look not like a logo but a man who might be tired. What do you want from me? He said, almost quiet. Less of you, she said. At least in places you don't need to be. More of your resources pointed where they've always claimed to point. She softened. And for the record, I don't hate you. I hate what rooms like this make of people. Something unguarded flickered in his face and was replaced by something careful. We can do the grant. The dog goes to a trainer. The statement can happen. He hesitated. The apology. Matters, Avery said. He nodded once, fine. Sloane's eyes flashed. Absolutely not. If we apologize to teachers, it looks like we were wrong. What? We were wrong, Graham said, and the room jumped a degree warmer. Sloane turned slowly to him. Graham. He didn't look at her. Draw the statement, he told counsel. Run it by Avery's team. He looked back at her. Is that enough? For today. She slid the dog tag from her pocket and set it on the table. The little thunderbolt flashed like a private joke. And Atlas doesn't come to parties anymore. Done, he said, and something like relief crossed his features, so fast he might not have noticed it. Sloane stood, grace-edged in fury. We're not salvaging this by letting her play benevolent tyrant. She gathered her phone and her folder, every movement a cut. If you won't contain her, the market will. She left. The door's quiet click sounded louder than a slam. Graham watched the glass for a long breath, then faced Avery. They will come for you now, he said. You know that. They were already knocking, she said. Now I answer my own door. What? He gave us. I'm a teacher, she said, and picked up the dog tag. We heard chaos. On the sidewalk outside, Noah waited with 2 coffees and a look that asked for data and offered home. She told him the shape of the deal. He whistled low. You made him blink. I made him look. Her phone buzzed. A message from the junior publicist. They moved the leak up. Sloane S. pushing a Who is Avery Bennett feature to go live at 6:00 p.m. with Newport photos. I tried to stall, I'm sorry. Avery exhaled. Here it comes. So we beat it, Noah said. We tell the truth first. She nodded. Donnelly's office, the auditorium, the kids' art on the walls. Cameras welcome, but it's our room. At 4:30, she stood on the scuffed stage of her school auditorium, behind a mic that had fed 100 PTA cookies and a dozen talent show ballads. She looked at the painted suns along the back wall and felt the steadiness that had nothing to do with money. Donnelly squeezed her arm. Noah adjusted the mic. Ethan took a seat in the back, legal pad closed. Avery breathed in, held out. Hi, she said to the empty seats filling with local press and worried parents and 2 8th graders gripping sketchbooks like shields. My name is Avery Bennett. Here's who I am, and here's what I'm not. She told the story the way you tell a child the truth, without romance, without apology. A family with money, a daughter who wanted color more than capital, a trust with conditions, a dog in a road, a word that hurt, a choice made at a table with a view of fairies. When she finished, the room felt like a lung just before the exhale. From the wings, Noah gave her a thumbs up. Ethan nodded once, proud and professional. Donnelly wiped her eye and didn't pretend she hadn't. Avery stepped back from the mic and felt, not relief, but alignment. Her phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number with a media domain. We're still running Sloane's piece. Off the record, her angle is ugly. Heiress plays poor to trick public. Any comment? Avery typed with a steady hand. Yes. Come see the art show tomorrow. Bring a checkbook or bring silence. She slipped the phone into her pocket and looked out at the seats, at the space she could fill with names that mattered. Outside, the sky cracked open, and a line of sun lit the water like a path. Back at Sterling HQ, Sloane stood in a glass office dialing fast, eyes bright with the adrenaline of a new kind of war. Midnight drop, she told a blogger. We go bigger. In his window, Graham watched a golden dog asleep on a blanket, breathing easy for the first time in 24 hours. He picked up his phone, hovered, then put it down. His reflection looked like a man caught between the version of himself he sold and the one knocking. At 5:58, a countdown began on a news site's front page. Who is Avery Bennett? 2 minutes. Avery smiled without joy and lifted her chin. The countdown hit 0 at 6:00 p.m. on the dot. The headline bloomed like a bruise across every phone in the city. Who is Avery Bennett? The subhead did the work Sloane wanted done, heiress plays poor to fool public, followed by a collage of curated facts and weaponized innuendo. There was the Cliff photo again, the bracelet with the antique bee, the Newport registry, a grainy shot of a teenage girl stepping out of a black car that looked more expensive than mercy. The copy was a syrupy indictment, generosity toward public schools while hiding a dynastic fortune. The final paragraph winked as it stabbed. If she'll hide her name, what else will she hide? The comments were a stampede. Some called her a liar. Some called her a survivor of wealth. Most treated her like a screen to project at. The school's parent group chat erupted in fire emojis and question marks. District communications left a voicemail recommending a brief leave of absence to lower the temperature. Donnelly texted, "Don't sign anything, I'm with you." Avery stood in the dark wings of the auditorium and breathed in for 4, held for 4, out for 4. On stage, the last camera was clipping a lav mic to the rickety podium. Noah hovered at the side aisle, a line between her and the swarm of lenses that had already arrived ahead of the invitation. Ethan sat halfway back, arms folded, looking like a man who had brought the law to a fistfight and was willing to use it. She stepped up. The first murmurs skittered through the rows, an intake of spectacle. "Thanks for being here," she said. "I'll be brief. You've read a lot about me today. Some of it's true, some of it is. I taught art all morning. I'll teach it again tomorrow. I used to belong to a world with marble floors. I chose one with paint on the tables. I won't apologize for either." A hand shot up before she was done. A mother in a blazer, jaw clenched, hair sprayed into certainty. "Why didn't you tell us?" she demanded, voice quivering with a cocktail of fear and envy. "We're scraping for bake sales and you have a trust." Avery's ribs tightened, then loosened. "I have a trust with locks on it," she said. "Locks I chose. It keeps me honest. I can't reach into it to fix everything. But I can choose how I stand in front of the kids. I stand as Miss Bennett, who brings them brushes and tells them the truth." A small voice from the front row, one of her fifth graders, hair in 2 crooked braids, knees socked in paint, piped up without waiting to be called on. "Miss B, did you really save a dog?" Avery laughed, the sound breaking on a lump. "Yeah, kiddo, I really did." The room softened, then tightened again as phones lit and a reporter called. "Are you a Bennett?" The way he said it made it sound like a felony. Before she could answer, Noah stepped closer, a barrier and a buoy. "One at a time," he said. "We're not a stock to short." A buzz. The junior publicist's name flashed. Avery swiped. 3 screenshots arrived like small bombs. The first, a Slack thread labeled Content War Room with Sloan writing, "Seed Newport photo tonight, push performative poverty." The second, a text to a number saved as R, "Take your position now. Drop at 6 guarantees movement." The third, an audio file, Sloane's voice, calm as glass. "If she comes clean, we pivot to hypocrite. If she fights, we call it unhinged. Either way, we pull focus off Graham." Avery felt the floor tilt and then settle. She forwarded everything to Ethan and then, without thinking, to Graham. A beat later, 3 dots appeared under his name. Then nothing. Ethan stood and made a small motion toward the backstage door. She shook her head. "Stay." She faced the room. "I'm being smeared by a PR machine," she said, voice level. "And because I hold a proxy now, I can say this without speculation. That machine works for a company I partly own. That's confusing. It's also temporary." What? Gasps, phones up. The mother in the blazer opened and closed her mouth like a fish trying to remember land. Donnelly stepped to Avery's side, spine straight. "Our school is not a set for anyone's storyline," she said into the mic. "We're here for kids. If you're here for spectacle, the door is that way." Avery looked down and saw a drawing in the hands of the girl with the braids. A golden dog with a crown, and next to it, a stick-figure woman holding a paintbrush like a sword. Underneath, in shaky block letters, "Thank you for holding the leash." She didn't mean to cry. She did anyway, one clean tear, hot and unreasonable and necessary. Noah's hand brushed her shoulder, the lightest touch. Her phone vibrated again. A push alert cut through the noise, Sterling CEO issue statement. She tapped. A video loaded, Graham in a simple office, jacket off, tie loosened, the mask set aside. "Teachers of Seattle," he said, and his voice didn't sound like a commercial. "I'm sorry. I spoke carelessly in a moment when care was called for. We're funding a 5-year, independently administered arts grant for public schools. Atlas will not appear at brand events going forward. He's a dog, not a prop. Finally, our communications will not disparage private citizens. We'll be reviewing how we failed at that." He swallowed. "We owe you better." The auditorium went utterly, wonderfully quiet. Avery felt the room change temperature. It didn't make her like him. It did make her recognize the spine of a better choice. 30 seconds later, a separate statement from Sterling's board dropped into her notifications, an announcement of an internal review of communications operations. Sloane's name wasn't on it. It didn't need to be. The room felt it anyway, the windward side of a firing. Reporters shouted, "Is the grant because of Ms. Bennett's stake? Is this damage control? Is this an admission of guilt?" Donnelly raised both palms. "Take the win," she said simply. "And bring this energy to the next school board budget meeting." A man in an ill-fitting suit hustled down the aisle and thrust an envelope at Avery. "You've been served," he said, already pivoting. TRO language glared from the top of the document, an emergency motion filed by Sloane Kingsley to restrain Avery from disparaging commentary. Ethan took the papers from her hands like he was diffusing a device. "A prior restraint," he murmured, eyebrow up. "Cute and unconstitutional." He turned to the nearest camera. "We'll respond in court in the morning." Noah leaned in. "You okay?" She inhaled, held, exhaled. "Define okay." He smiled with his eyes. "You're still you, that's okay." Her phone buzzed again. "Graham, I received what you sent. We'll talk after the review. For now, thank you for the leash line. It's in my bones." She typed back, "Make it in your culture." He answered, "Working on it." The mother in the blazer stepped forward again, eyes damp now. "I was hard on you," she said. "I'm sorry." Avery shook her head. "You were scared for your kid. I am too. Let's bake sale this grant into something louder." A laugh moved through the seats like oxygen returning to a room that had been holding its breath for a week. Donnelly clapped once on the beat. "Art show tomorrow. We'll take donations in cash, check, and humility." As people stood, the junior publicist slipped into the aisle, hoodie up, face pale. "I sent those receipts," she whispered, eyes shining with a bravery that cost. "They'll know it was me soon." Avery pressed the dog tag into her palm. "If they shut a door, call me. We'll open one with our own keys." Outside, the sky had cracked just enough to show a strip of late gold over the water. Reporters milled. Parents hugged. A kid ran in circles like a comet. Out of habit, Avery glanced toward the street and froze. Sloane stood on the curb in that white suit, a smile like polished ice. Beside her, a cameraman. In her hand, a thumb drive she held up between two fingers like a priest with a wafer. "Last chance," she called, honeyed and lethal. "Tell them everything, Avery, or I will." "What else is there?" Avery asked, too tired for theater. Sloane's smile widened. "Ask her about the clause that made her mother cry. Ask her what she signed to disappear. Ask her," she paused, savoring it, "why she left Newport the night the boat went dark." The gold line over the water went thin as wire. The thumb drive glinted between Sloane's fingers like a coin you flip when you already know which side you rigged. "Ask her why she left Newport the night the boat went dark," she purred, smiling for the cluster of lenses and phones. Avery didn't step back. She stepped closer so the mics didn't have to. "You want it on record," she said. "Fine, come inside. Tell the same story in real light." Something flickered in Sloane's eyes. Annoyance at being invited into the stage she planned to ambush from the curb. But a camera loves an archway and the auditorium door made one. She followed. On stage, the old podium looked suddenly dignified in a way only public school furniture can when someone is brave behind it. Donnelly stood at Avery's shoulder, a principal in full weather-the-storm stance. Noah posted in the side aisle, a steady compass. Ethan sat 3 rows back, legal pad closed, listening like a scalpel. Avery looked at the crowd. "You've heard a phrase," she began, voice even. "The night the boat went dark, here are the facts." She let silence gather its attention. "5 summers ago, there was a charity regatta off Newport," she said. "On a tender boat between the dock and the big boats, the lights cut. The generator failed. People panicked. A deckhand slipped on diesel and went down hard. I called 911, rode with him to the ER and sat with him until his sister got there. When I walked out, the fixers were already naming a narrative. The crew begged not naming a narrative. The crew begged not to be the story that got them blackballed. I signed a confidentiality addendum that kept my name out and their names safe. Then I left. That's it. Sloane laughed softly, a sound with teeth. Cute. Leave out the part where a contractor from a sterling portfolio installed that generator. Leave out the hush money. Ethan rose, calm as tide. There was no hush money, he said, projecting without shouting. There was medical coverage paid directly to the injured crew. There was a Coast Guard incident report, public record. He lifted a stapled packet. There was also a recall advisory 2 weeks later on lithium battery banks distributed by Sterling Marine Systems. Every head in the room rotated to Sloane, then to Avery, then toward the idea of Graham as if summoning him by thought. They didn't have to. The side door opened and he walked in without escort, jacket off, tie loose, eyes tired. He moved down the aisle the way a man moves when he chose to walk rather than be walked. "Ms. Kingsley," he said, voice low but carrying, "we're done weaponizing half-truths." Sloane's smile didn't touch her eyes. "We're done letting heiresses play martyr." Graham ignored her. He stepped onto the stage but not to center. He took a place 2 feet back from Avery's right shoulder, the way you stand when you've decided to support without swallowing. He looked out at the room, at the kids in paint-smeared jeans and the parents gripping tote bags and the cameras hungry for complication. "Our subsidiary's battery bank failed that night," he said simply. "We paid for the injury and for the recall. We instituted new safety protocols. None of that would have happened as quickly if someone hadn't made noise the fixers didn't want made. I didn't know that someone was Avery until this week. I do now, and I'm grateful." A murmur rolled through the auditorium, half surprise, half relief. Sloane kept her chin high. "Grateful is cute," she said, "but gratitude doesn't erase hypocrisy." Avery stepped forward. "Hypocrisy is selling a reconciliation arc while emailing bloggers performative poverty at 6 p.m., she said. "Hypocrisy is putting a dog under lights and calling it community." She looked at the audience again, steady. "I left Newport because I didn't like the person rooms like that were making me. I took a job where I could be useful without needing a photographer. If you want to call that hypocrisy, I can't stop you. I can keep teaching at 8:05. The junior publicist in the hoodie hovered at the aisle, flushed with a courage that looked brand new. She lifted a phone toward the projector input and Ethan nodded. A short clip filled the back wall. A recorded 911 call, a young woman's voice steady under chaos. "This is the tender between the pier and the moorings. Male, mid-20s, fall with loss of consciousness, breathing shallow. We need EMTs at the dock." Another clip, ocean notice of inspection. A third, an email from an alias that the room now understood. "The injured crew prefer anonymity. Please direct all inquiries to the hospital PR desk. No photos at the dock." Sloane's jaw tightened. "Adorable," she said, quieter now. "You carried water for the little people and then ran." A light ping sounded in Noah's pocket. He glanced, then looked at Avery, face sharpening. He passed her the screen. A text from Mateo, the deckhand, lit in blue, saw the stream. "Want me to talk? I owe you." Avery swallowed. "Can you FaceTime?" she typed back. Seconds later, Mateo's face filled the auditorium's back wall. Older than in the hospital, left eyebrow with a white nick of scar, eyes bright. "Hey, Seattle," he said, grinning crooked. "She stayed until my sister got there. She told the suited guys if they posted my name she'd blast them to the moon. Then she sent me a book about boats and bones and told me the body keeps the score and that I'd be okay. I am. Thanks, Ms. Bennett, and thanks," he glanced off-screen, "to whoever just brought me the best burrito in Rhode Island. You know who you are." The room laughed, an honest, grateful sound. Avery blinked hard and failed at stopping the second tear of the day. Noah's hand at her back steadied her between public and private. Graham's phone buzzed. He looked, frowned, and stepped to the podium. "One more correction," he said. "Effective immediately, Sloane Kingsley is suspended pending review. Our board will announce more in the morning." A hiss of whispers whipped through the seats. Sloane didn't blanch. She smiled like a person who knew 10 exits and never needed the front door. "Suspend away," she said sweetly. "You'll need me by sunrise." She pivoted, ready to go, then tossed the thumb drive toward the first row. It clattered, small and theatrical. "The clause that made Mommy cry," she called. "The one that says Avery doesn't get to put her name on gifts over a certain size for 5 years. How philanthropic. How invisible." Avery picked up the drive and turned it in her fingers like a stone from a beach you used to visit and then chose not to. She faced the room. "That clause exists," she said. "My mother cried because she wanted me to say yes to my name. I said no because I needed to say yes to myself. That's the math." A reporter shouted, "So you won't give money with your name on it?" "I'll give time with my whole life on it," she said. "And money when the locks open, in ways that don't make kids props." Another ping on Noah's phone, then Ethan's, then Graham's. A handler's frantic text chain lit their screens. "Where is Atlas? He was here. He's gone. I turned 30 seconds. He was gone." Avery's stomach went cold. "What do you mean, gone?" Noah was already moving. "Cameras," he said. "Back corridors, street feeds." "What?" Graham actually barked into his phone, a language that belonged to men who could move cities. Sloane's smile sharpened, sincerity returning like a costume. "The dog deserves safety," she said. "Away from optics." Avery stared at her. "If you took him." "If anyone took him," Sloane said, widening her hands into innocence, "it would be to somewhere quiet, camera-free, for his own good. Perhaps to a rival brand's gentler shoot. Perhaps to remind certain parties who still knows where the switches are." Donnelly stepped between Avery and Sloane like an umbrella you didn't know you needed. "This is a school," she said. "Take your games to the curb." Sloane dipped her head, that impossible white suit catching a last slash of auditorium light. "Tick-tock," she murmured, and left through the side door with the glide of a woman who believed the night belonged to her. "Where does she take things when she wants them seen without being seen?" Ethan asked, mind already mapping. "The Rose Terminal Storage Studios," the junior publicist said instantly, voice shaking. "She holds off-the-record shoots there. No building cameras, just freelancers." Graham nodded, jaw setting. "I'll meet you there," he told Avery, as if they'd been planning rescues together for years. "My team's 5 minutes out." Avery glanced at Noah. He was already grabbing his jacket. "Anchor point?" she asked. "On your 6, he said. They ran out the auditorium, into the early night where the water caught the last smear of gold like a promise refusing to go out. Sirens arced somewhere distant. Donnelly's voice carried faint behind them, rallying parents into art show sign-up sheets because principals salvage futures in any weather. In the car, Avery's hands found the silver tag in her pocket. She pressed the thunderbolt until it hurt. "We get him," she said, to the windshield, to the dark, to the version of herself who didn't owe a camera anything. Noah drove like a man who knew every light's habit. Graham's black sedan cut in 2 blocks ahead, hazard lights pulsing, a beacon of money trying to behave. Ethan texted addresses and gate codes and the one phrase that made doors open in this town: "We'll be there with counsel." The Rose Terminal loomed, brick, quiet, the kind of place that rent and secrets share. A side door yawned just enough. Inside, light pooled on polished concrete, and somewhere beyond the push brooms and backdrop rolls, a dog barked once, sharp and frightened, the sound of a heart hitting walls. Avery didn't wait for permission. She stepped through the barely open door and into a maze built to make people look like something they were. "Atlas," she called, voice low, steady, the tone that had turned a frantic room calm under 2 bright lights. Low, steady, the tone that had turned a frantic room calm under 2 bright lights. "Buddy, it's me." Silence, then claws on concrete, then another bark closer. A soft voice drifted from deeper in the building, shaped like sugar and knives. "Careful, Avery," Sloane sang. "We wouldn't want another video of you doing something stupid." The studio smelled like paper, metal, and nerves. Softboxes bloomed in corners, a ring light glared, and somewhere behind a maze of rolling racks a dog whimpered, a single high note that jabbed straight through Avery's ribs. She moved with her palms open, voice low and steady. "Atlas, buddy, it's me." "Careful," Sloane called from deeper in the warehouse, sugar on the blade. "Wouldn't want another video of you doing something impulsive." Noah ghosted Avery's flank, flashlight angled at the concrete so he didn't blind the dog. Behind them, Ethan murmured into his phone. Port of Seattle police were minutes away. At the bay door, Graham's security held position, sleeves rolled, earpieces blinking. Graham himself slipped in through a side gap, jacket off, eyes hard. They cleared the last rack and found the set. A backdrop of faux living room, a couch too white to be honest, an Atlas tethered by a slip lead to a C-stand, panting, pupils blown wide by light. A freelance cameraman hovered, conflicted. Sloane stood center frame in a white suit that drank the light and reflected it as power. "Untie him," Avery said. Sloane's smile widened. "We'll get our shot first." Reckless teacher barges into secure location, upsets animal. Then we cut to you lunging, the lamp tips, the internet does its dance, and tomorrow I negotiate you into a safe, soft apology. Or, Avery said, you unclip the lead and nobody gets hurt. Sloane tilted her head. "Do you really think you get to bargain with me in my room?" "It isn't your room." Graham's voice came from the shadows. He stepped forward, gaze flicking from Atlas to the set to Sloane. "This is company property used for unauthorized activity." "Please," Sloane said lightly. "You'll thank me when the numbers move." "What?" Noah crouched sideways to the dog, hands low. "Atlas, hey," he breathed. The retriever's ears twitched. Avery knelt beside Noah, body small, eyes on the dog's shoulder. "It's okay." The ring light hummed. The freelance cameraman swallowed. Footsteps scuffed behind them. Port police announced, Seattle Port PD. The badge in the doorway caught the light, body cams blinked to life. Sloane didn't flinch. "Officers," she sang. "We're merely filming. Dog safe, owner's assistant on site." "Owner is on site," Graham said, stepping into the cam's frame. "And he didn't authorize this." The cameraman, mid-30s, tattoo on his wrist, eyes tired, looked at Avery, then at Sloane's hand on the slip lead. Something in him tilted. "I'm out," he said, dropping his rig to safe. "I didn't sign for a staged panic. She told me to pop the lamp if the teacher didn't move." Sloane's smile Dopplered colder. "Contracts have NDAs, Tony." Tony shrugged, suddenly lighter. "So do consciences." What? Ethan spoke to the officers, calm as tide. "We have text evidence of intent to manufacture a false narrative. We have a living animal under duress. We have trespass under corporate policy." He handed a folder over. "And a standing court order regarding the use of this dog in brand activations." Sloane's eyes flicked toward the exit. Calculus word. She reached for the lead. "Don't," Avery said, soft, certain. Atlas whined, then took two uncertain steps toward the only voices in the room not shaped like control. Noah slipped two fingers under the slip lead and loosened pressure, a breath. Avery touched Atlas's chest where fear unbuttons. "Good boy." His breath hitch settled. "Unclip," Graham said. Sloane's smile flattened into a line. "No." "Unclip," he repeated, and there was something in his tone that wasn't performance. She held the stare a heartbeat too long. Graham reached past her, hands practiced now, and released the clip. Atlas leaned into Avery's knee like tide returning to shore. The room exhaled with him. "Ms. Kingsley," one officer said, voice professional. "You're being detained for questioning related to unlawful restraint of property, attempted extortion, and interference with an animal under RCW." That's adorable, Sloane murmured, extending her wrists as if offering couture for inspection. Camera's rolling. Get my good side. Tony didn't lift his rig. We're done, he said. I'm not filming this. Sloane glanced around for another lens and found only body cams in consequence. For the first time, something hairline cracked behind her eyes. Walk, the officer said. She smoothed her suit with a single palm, ritual not need, and let herself be guided. As she passed Avery, she leaned in whisper tight. Rooms like this eat idealists. You'll crawl back to me. Avery met her without blinking. I'll teach my kids how to build better rooms. Sloane's laugh was small now. We'll see, she said, and let the night take her. Atlas buried his head against Avery's hip, shaking. He's done, Noah said softly. Let's get him out of light. They moved together, Noah slipping on a calm, wide collar, Avery keeping one hand on warm fur, Graham clearing a path, Ethan making the papers behave. Outside, the terminal's wind smelled like salt and rust and something clean. Atlas lifted his head and sniffed the world like it might forgive him. Graham stopped under a dead bulb and looked at Avery as if seeing a language he hadn't learned because he didn't need to until now. Thank you, he said. No script, no angle, just breath. Hold the leash, she said, not unkind. That's 90%, a strange, real smile ghosting across his mouth. News broke fast and loud. By the time they reached the parking lot, Sterling's board pushed a release. Sloane Kingsley terminated for cause. Independent audit initiated. Cooperation with authorities. The grant to public school arts went from pledge to contract. Signed, sealed, insulated from PR hands. At the clinic, Noah settled Atlas in a quiet room with a fleece blanket and a Kong stuffed with peanut butter salvation. He needs decompression, he said, and boundaries, and fewer parties. Put it in the memo, Graham said, dry and grateful. He watched Atlas settle, some knot in his shoulders releasing as he did. I'm appointing an animal welfare advisor to the foundation. 2 seats, you and Avery. Avery shook her head. I don't want a seat under your logo. Then beside it, he said, independent counsel, you set the rules, I follow. She hesitated, then nodded once. One rule, she said, we don't make animals metaphors. Done. He looked down. Do you want to say goodnight to him? Avery knelt. Atlas lifted his head, thumped his tail once, then tucked back into the blanket. You're okay, she whispered. Sleep like nothing bad is happening on the internet. When she stood, Noah pressed a paper bag into her hands. Crullers from the bakery, he said. Eat before you fall over. Outside, the parking lot felt like neutral ground between old life and new weather. Avery leaned against Noah's car, bag warm in her hands. Bitter enough, he asked. Bitter, she said, not finished. Her phone buzzed. A push alert. Exclusive former PR chief detained, accused of staging dog panic. Public school art grant finalized. A second alert stacked. Board NAMES interim head of communications. Culture reset. Another buzz, Ethan. You did it. Also, check your email. Per your mother's instructions, a letter was to be delivered the first time you used the Bennett name to protect someone else. It's time. Avery stared at the screen until the words steadied. She opened her inbox. Subject line, to my daughter on the day she chose herself. Her throat tightened before she clicked. Not here, she thought. Not in a parking lot that smelled like bleach and relief. Tomorrow, after the art show, when the room is full of kids and color, and the kind of light we can afford. She slipped the phone away. Noah watched her with that wordless old friend knowing. Tomorrow, he said. Tomorrow, she echoed. Across town, a woman in a white suit sat under fluorescent lights, posture flawless, smile locked. She rehearsed fresh angles like prayers. For the first time in a very long time, no one answered. Back at Avery's apartment, the city hummed with a gentler electricity. She set the crullers on the counter, wrote 3 words on a post-it, and stuck it to the door so she'd see it in the morning. Hold the leash. And then finally she slept. Saturday smelled like tempera paint and cinnamon. The cafeteria had been alchemized into an art show by masking tape, string lights, and the stubborn faith of public school parents. Suns the color of mango slices marched along one wall. Paper galaxies spun above the bake sale table. A cardboard sign read Art Makes Room. Avery arrived early with a box of binder clips and a steadier heart than she'd had in weeks. Donnelly met her at the door, sleeves rolled, a warrior in sensible shoes. "We have more volunteers than tables," she said, a little breathless. "Worst problem I've had in years." "Let's make more tables," Avery said, and they did. Cafeteria benches flipped and draped, a geometry of generosity. By 10, the room hummed. Parents dropped bills in a jar like they were tipping a band. A city council member came, not with a speech but with a check. Someone's uncle played quiet guitar in the corner. Every time a kid dragged a grown-up to a painting and said, "This one is mine," the room brightened a measurable degree. Noah slipped in with coffee and a grin. "The clinic says Atlas slept like a rock," he reported. "He ate," he wagged, he ignored the news cycle. "Smart dog," Avery said. "Better boundaries than most adults." What? She taped the last label under a watercolor dragon and stepped back. For a moment, she let the chatter blur. "We built this room," she thought. "Not for show, for shelter." A small voice tugged her sleeve. The girl with the crooked braids held up a Polaroid. Avery kneeling beside the dragon painting, face soft, eyes bright. "For you," the girl said shyly. "So you remember." "I will," Avery said and meant it. Near noon, the doors opened and a hush moved across the floor like a friendly wave. Graham stood there with 2 board members, no photographers, no entourage, a paper bakery bag in his hand like he'd copied Noah's idea. He looked smaller here, not diminished, simply resized to human. And for the first time, Avery saw the boy he must have been before rooms taught him the trick of angles. He approached the donation jar, put his check inside without flourish and turned to the kids. "Which is yours?" he asked a boy in a dinosaur hoodie. The boy pointed to a landscape where the Space Needle wore a crown. "That's excellent crown work," Graham said solemnly. The boy beamed. Sloane was not present. Her name hung over the city like weather that had finally blown east. The interim comms head sent a polite email at dawn. "We will respect your room." The board posted a link to the grant contract with the words independent, long-term. No naming rights bolded for the gods and the trolls. Avery's phone vibrated. "Ethan, the letter, you ready?" She was. She slipped into her classroom, where the sunlight was kind and the sink was perpetually temper-stained. She sat at her desk and opened the email. Subject, to my daughter on the day she chose herself. "Hi, brave girl. If you're reading this, you used our name to shield someone else. I knew you would. That's why I wrote a trigger into the trust. The proxy transfers to you not when you come asking for power, but when you stand in front of it to break a fall that isn't yours. You were born into rooms that tell you what your worth is. I hope you keep building rooms that ask who you're becoming. I cried over the clause that hides your name on gifts because I grew up in houses that needed names to feel less empty. You didn't. You needed space to make color. I wish I'd understood sooner. I do now. When your father and I fought in front of the boat with all those brittle people, it wasn't about money. It was about fear. He feared being ordinary. I feared you'd inherit that fear. If you ever feel it knock, answer the door with your paint-stained hands and tell it you're busy. Hold the leash. Of the dog of the story of your temper. Let kindness be a rule, not a rumor. If you meet a man who can apologize in public and listen in private, let him stand beside you. If you meet a woman who weaponizes truth, don't use her tactics. Use your own spine. And if the world asks who you really are, say, "I'm someone's teacher," then teach it. Love. Mom. Avery pressed her finger to the glass as if she could feel the ink. She let herself cry exactly the way she wanted her fifth graders to cry when a painting taught them something about their own insides. Honestly. Then, with a laugh, she took a photo of the letter and slid it into a folder named Sky. When she cafeteria, Noah spotted her eyes and didn't ask. Graham approached like a student who'd rehearsed good behavior. "May I show you something?" he asked. He held out his phone. On the screen, a short internal memo already sent: Foundation Animal Policy. No live animals at events. Mandatory welfare training for staff. Budget for grants to shelters and low-cost clinics. Advisor names pending. "It's a start," she said. "It's a leash," he said, almost smiling. "I'm holding it." Donnelly clinked a glass with a butter knife. The room settled. "Welcome," she began, "to the first art show in this building that didn't require a bake sale to be possible. And also the last bake sale we'll ever need for brushes." Laughter rolled. "Today we celebrate kids, teachers, and the people who remember that community isn't a press release. It's this." Applause swelled. A local reporter, one of the decent ones, approached Avery afterward. "I'd like to do a piece," she said, "about how a school builds a room, not about how a billionaire enters one." "Fine," Avery said. "Only rule, we don't film kids' faces without consent, and you bring a roll of tape." The reporter grinned. "Deal." In the afternoon lull, a quiet surprise. The junior publicist slipped in, hoodie up, clutching a paper bag. "I made scones," she said, embarrassed by her own existence. "Gut says I'm fired by Monday." "Then you're hired by Tuesday," Donnelly said from a foot away, startling her. "Part-time grant coordinator. We need someone who knows where the switches are." The young woman's eyes filled. "I can do that," she said. "I'm good at switches." "Welcome," Avery said. "There's coffee in the art room. It tastes like survival." As the sun slid down the gym windows, the show wound to a soft close. Parents stacked chairs, kids chased glitter. Someone's toddler fell asleep under a banner that said, "We see you." Graham lingered near the exit, awkward in a way that made him easier to like. "I'll head out," he said. "No cameras." "Thank you for not turning this into your own movie," Avery said. He exhaled, something like relief. "I'm learning the difference between a set and a room." "Keep learning," she said, "and keep your dog away from ring lights." "I will," he said, "if you'll keep answering when I ask where to put the money." "Into places that won't thank you with your name," she said, "and into people who will never send you a deck." He nodded, genuine. "Deal." Outside, the sky laid a ribbon of copper along the water. Avery walked home with Noah, a box of leftover crullers between them like a benevolent mascot. "You did it," he said. "We did it," she corrected, "and we didn't become what we fought." Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number with a small paw-print avatar. "Heard you built a room. Could use your eye at our shelter. Leashes, light, and a mural that doesn't look like the inside of a waiting room. Coffee on me. Director, Harbor Haven Rescue." Avery smiled. "More rooms," she said. Noah bumped her shoulder. "More rooms." That night she set the Polaroid beside her mother's letter and the silver dog tag on the kitchen shelf. A small altar to the week the story tried to eat her and failed. Seattle hummed outside. In the quiet, Avery whispered to the air, to her students' names pinned to walls, to a city learning different angles. "Hold the leash." Across town, in a glass office that still smelled like someone else's ideas, Sloane stared at a blank contract from a rival firm and realized it didn't feel like power. It felt like noise without a room. She smiled anyway. People like her always did. But when she sent her pitch at midnight, half the usual numbers bounced. At the clinic, Atlas sighed into his fleece and dreamed dog dreams of fairy horns and hands that knew how to be gentle. Graham sat in the lobby with a notebook, drafting a list titled "Things We Don't Monetize," and beneath it, a longer list, "Ways to Listen." And in a public school classroom that had learned to make its own weather, Avery wrote Monday's objective on the whiteboard before bed. Make light with color. Bring tape. Bring truth. The city turned. The water kept its promises. Somewhere, a door that used to open only one way swung both directions. If you want to see the mural go up and meet the next room they build together, stick around.